Hey, it's me again. Thanks for watching the last video. I didn't even know that there were this many people that still cared about me. Ooh, woo, I'm so happy. I said at the end of that video that I didn't know what direction I was going to take the channel in, and I wasn't really sure if I wanted to pump out a bunch of reviews constantly, but honestly, for now, I'm just kind of getting back into the groove of things. I kind of want to ease myself back into this workflow and just get used to editing again. So we're just gonna stick with alley reviews because it's just easier and it's not as stressful for me. We'll probably do the more ambitious, bigger videos later on down the line, maybe next month, but for now, we're just gonna be focusing on the alley reviews videos. And it's kind of a win-win because there's a lot of cool shit that came out recently that I want to talk about anyways. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time and just jump into it.
What is your name?
Eusebio Ibrimo Baloy.
You?
Eusebio Ibrimo Baloy.
How about Yasuke?
Starting off, we got a new Netflix anime series called Yasuke. Now, this is actually loosely based on a real black samurai that actually existed in like the 1500s. He was brought over to Japan as a slave and just happened to come across Nobunaga Oda, one of the rulers of Japan at the time. So Nobunaga took him out of slavery and invited him into his family, not as a slave, but as just a genuine human being. He liked and appreciated him and just wanted to know more about him. Eventually, Yasuke and Nobunaga ended up becoming really close friends, and soon after that, Yasuke became one of the highest ranking samurai in Nobunaga's army, and eventually, his personal bodyguard. Besides his time spent with Nobunaga though, there's not much else that's really known about Yasuke, so a lot of people have to take some liberties when making stories centered around the one and only black samurai. This anime series in particular decides to take Yasuke on a journey to defend a little girl who has anime superpowers from other evil people who also have anime superpowers. Needless to say, the people behind this show are getting really creative with it. And I know that this was one of the things that turned a lot of people off of the show. Like, why not just make a biopic faithful to the story of the source material rather than doing all this fantasy shit? The core concept of the narrative is interesting enough to carry its own story, right? Don't get me wrong, I kind of felt that way too. But with further thought and actually watching the show, I think that this works in its favor. Once again, the recorded history of Yasuke is very intriguing and very cool, but it's also really brief. There's not enough known about this guy to make a good biopic on without it feeling a bit fabricated and disingenuous. So it's actually better to take the heart of that story and expand upon it in your own way to breathe some context into these real people and events and accentuate the things about it that are good rather than just filling in the blanks with disingenuous shit that probably didn't even happen. It reminded me a lot of Golden Kamuy in that sense. Just because it has some shit that's a part of it that's obviously not what actually happens, doesn't necessarily mean it can't accentuate what made parts of the story so good to begin with. That's what Yasuke does with its story. It builds off of the Nobunaga shit in an interesting way and not a lame, shitty way. This show is also interesting because of the people that are working on it. The creator/director of this show is LeSean Thomas. This is the guy who was the leading force in the production of the Black Dynamite anime, which is fucking fantastic.
What is it, Black Dynamite?
Nothing. I'm fine.
You need me to get you something?
Nah, Mama, I'm okay.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, it's all.
Is there something I can get you?
Damn it, I already told the second bitch no.
He also worked on some early episodes of The Boondocks, and most recently, he actually managed to create his own anime, Cannon Busters. All the music in this show is by Flying Lotus, who is already a pretty popular, critically acclaimed musician on his own, but he also did the score for the Blade Runner anime short that Shinichiro Watanabe directed in promotion of Blade Runner 2049. And Lakeith Stanfield is going to be voicing the main character. These were all the people that were mentioned in the reveal trailer for this show to get people hyped and interested. And despite all of them being super popular people that have all proven their skill in their respective field, I was personally not looking forward to this shit at all. The trailer was fucking ass. The trailer sucked Mongo dick. The animation was bad. Lakeith sounded bad. The way they edited the trailer was super cliche and bad. Even the music in the trailer was fucking bad.
The one we've waited for. The one who can deliver us victory.
Everything about this show just screamed C-tier, bottom barrel anime trash. It also didn't help that there was already a really fucking good anime about a black samurai voiced by a popular Hollywood actor and already scored by a popular black hip-hop musician. It kind of makes Yasuke seem like a clickbait, half-assed attempt to just cash in on the black anime market that liked Afro Samurai. I was fully expecting to hate this show based on all that stuff. But then I watched it, and I gotta say, I seriously underestimated this show. The trailer was not reflective of the actual product at all. From just the opening sequence in episode 1, it really drives home the fact that the people making this show really care. The directing in this scene combined with the soundtrack immediately gives you an idea of the vibe that this show is going for, and it was so unique and well executed that it immediately sold me on the rest of the show. This isn't some cookie cutter by the books anime based on a manga made by people who couldn't care less about it. This is a creative endeavor by people who really care about this project and put their all into it. And you can really tell that Flying Lotus and LeSean Thomas are taking this super seriously. I consider this to be like a really great opportunity to not just tell a good story, but deliver a good experience. That's how Yasuke felt. It didn't feel like I was just watching an anime for the story. It felt like I was watching an anime for the experience. All my preconceived notions about the soundtrack and directing went completely out the window when I saw what was on display. True passion and effort was at the forefront of this project, and I was infatuated by it immediately. I think the best way to describe Flying Lotus's music is to say that it's dreamlike and ethereal. If you've ever heard his music before, then you already kind of know what I mean. And the song in the trailer was not reflective of that. It was some Japanese trap remix garbo, so I kind of wrote off the music even before it came out. But in the show, you have these really soft, beautiful, thoughtfully composed tracks that stitches the entire feel of the series together. The songs in the show aren't made beforehand and then lazily pasted into scenes where they kind of fit. They're made with the specific moments in mind, which makes the music feel more important and present.
The signature in Yasuke, I think, will probably end up being the synthesizers. The Yamaha CS60, the same synthesizer that they used in Blade Runner. I have a lot of old analog synths that ended up in the show that just give it this sound mixed with that Japanese percussion. So I'm really excited about the musical side of it. So many different influences and a lot of vintage, rare equipment was used. It was just a fun ride. Beautiful project to work on.
This is the first time where I've watched an anime and fell in love with the score from track 1 to track 20. I don't like one song, I like all the songs. And just to put icing on the fucking cake, the opening song is a Flying Lotus composition with Thundercat on the fucking vocals. I love Thundercat so much. I literally jumped out of my seat with excitement when that came on for the first time. It's such a good fucking song. The reason why this video has taken so long to come out is because I've been spending my time listening to that fucking song more than writing this goddamn script. Then, as if things couldn't get any better, as the opening credits are going by, my meaty little fucking eyeballs catch a glimpse of Takeshi fucking Koike in the goddamn character design credits.
Hell yeah.
Takeshi Koike is a director himself, and he's earned his title as one of the greats in the anime industry. His art style usually permeates throughout the projects he takes control over, and his character design in particular is one of the most distinct qualities of his works that I've grown to love about him. And despite the fact that he is not the animation director this time around, his designs are still intact through MAPPA's animation team. When I saw those dancing voodoo guys in the beginning, I was like, oh shit, that's my nigga Takeshi right there. I have to say though, the red bear chick does not fit the setting or time period at all. She looks like she came straight out of fucking Redline. Where did you get these leather red fucking drip? Like, that does not feel like 1500s Japan. I talked in my Demon Slayer video about visual cohesion, and if you want to get creative with certain character designs, how it has to fit within the setting and how that's really hard to do. This show does not succeed specifically with this character design. Everyone else is kind of fine. This fucking voodoo black guy, he's fine. The robot is honestly fine. The fucking scythe bitch is honestly fine. This bitch is not fine. She looks so out of place. Get her out of here, please. Very minor complaint though, not that big of a deal. The writing in this show is also really good. Being that it is written by English speakers and it's not based off a manga or anything, there is a lot more freedom to express the nuances of the English dialogue than they would otherwise. Because if they were dubbing over animation that was putting Japanese voices before the English voices, then they would have to compensate for like syncing with the lip flaps and the Japanese script, and it just wouldn't be as good. The fact that this show prioritizes the English version before the Japanese one really helps a lot.
I want to fight in battles, like the great samurai warriors before me. I will succeed where they failed and defeat the daimyo.
A true warrior, above all else, prays for peace, not war.
War brings peace. Peace brings freedom.
But no matter how good the writing is, it can't save itself from bad voice acting.
Stop bothering me. I don't care. You have a lovely voice. You remember what happened after they attacked us? There was a light. You remember it? I told you. I don't know. The past informs our future.
But I'm gonna use my fifth to beat the shit out of Chupacabra, the only thing I've never beaten the shit out of yet.
Lakeith Stanfield is not a good voice actor. He is bad at voice acting. He sounds terrible in this show. They didn't hire him because he was a good voice actor. They hired him because he's a popular black guy that would make people watch the show if they heard he was in it.
There's a massive underserved audience that can make anime even bigger than it currently is, which is huge right now. And that's people who are casuals, people who are like, well, I'm not really into anime, but you know, Lakeith is in it.
Projects like this allows the audience that is not familiar with it, but are curious about it, to sort of lean in and be like, well, what's this about? I'm not really into anime, but Lakeith is playing the Black Samurai. I want to check that out.
I can tell he's trying. I can tell he cares. I can tell that he's doing his best. I know it's his first time voice acting and he just kind of wanted to try it out, but he's still really bad. I'm sorry. It detracts from the show so much. That's how bad he is. It's frustrating because this isn't even like he had to talk over footage of the show and sync up his dialogue. Like, the show is animated around the English voice acting.
先に英語の音声を取ってそこに合わせて口パク作画していくっていう手法を取っていたんで英語のセリフだったので結構苦労したりはしてて
So he got to record these lines however he wanted. He didn't have to compensate for what was already animated like most voice actors do. It's completely possible to hire people that are capable of good voice acting while simultaneously being famous enough to draw in viewers. Samuel L. Jackson is an Afro samurai and ninja because he's popular. It's because he's a genuinely good voice actor that's capable of doing the job he was fucking hired to do! Lakeith Stanfield is not Sam Jackson. Stop ruining anime, you son of a bitch. Hold on, let me do that from far away. Stop ruining anime, you son of a bitch! There, that's better. The other thing that I really didn't like about this show was the animation. And I imagine it's what a lot of other people didn't like about the show either. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, it's not Berserk 2016 or anything. It's serviceable, but compared to Jujutsu no Kaisen and Attack on Titan Season 4, it doesn't even come close. And when you put fucking Studio Mappa in the trailer, kind of selling the show on the fact that it's made by these guys that animated these shows, all that's going through people's head is, how could this show be made by the same guys who made those shows? Well, that's because the guys who made Jujutsu and AOT are not the same guys that made Yasuke. Yes, it's under the same studio, but it's not by the same people. See, Studio Mappa is known as that one anime studio that cares more about quantity than quality. If you actually sit down on their wiki page and look at their portfolio, you'll start to understand what I mean. They care more about making a lot of anime to make as much money as possible, rather than focusing on a few anime to make them as good as possible. And as a result, you get shit like this. Anime that is clearly just going through the fucking corporate tube of things that need to get made regardless of whether they look good or not. There is a really amazing video by the Kanapa Effect on Studio Mappa and why they are not good and why they don't deserve all the praise that they're getting. So go give that video a watch. I'll put it in the description. It's very well researched and it's very good. He's a very smart man. I love you. Thank you for making the video. Mwah. But despite all of that, I still really enjoyed the show. Like, the animation was fucking ass water, and Lakeith sucked throughout the entire thing, and the bear chick triggered the fuck out of me the whole time. But the pros of this show seriously outweighed the cons. The writing, the directing, the score, the character designs, the story make the negative aspects of the show very easy for me to put up with. So yeah, despite the bad things about this show, there was still a lot of love and passion poured into this project that I could really appreciate. I had absolutely no interest in Flying Lotus's music or LeSean Thomas's other shows, but now that I've seen what they can do with Yasuke, I'm going to check them out. I'm going to watch Cannon Busters, and I'm going to listen to some of Flying Lotus's other music and watch the movie that he directed. That seems cool. I know that everyone's kind of been shitting on this show and saying that it's dog ass, but I kind of liked it, and I hope that I at least piqued your interest a little bit. So yeah, if you're interested in this one, check it out. And I'm giving Yasuke a 7 out of 10. Next up, we got Mortal Kombat! Mortal Kombat! But I love Mortal Kombat, alright? I know the entire story from Mortal Kombat 1 to Mortal Kombat 11. I know all the jokes, I know all the references, I know every single character from Liu Kang to Mocap. I am a Mortal Kombat shill, so I was more excited for this movie than most people. And being that I am a fan of the games, I was incredibly anxious that this movie was going to be more of an attempt to appeal to people who don't know anything about Mortal Kombat. As stupid as that sounds, that tends to be the thing with video game movies. They care more about the people that don't like the game more than people that do like the game. But I have to say, the movie was pretty good in that regard. This movie is very faithful towards the game in a really endearing, appreciative kind of way. You can tell that the people making this movie loved Mortal Kombat as much as every other fan does. There were many moments in the film that felt like they were written and shot and scored in a way where it was directed towards people who already know and love Mortal Kombat. Like when Liu Kang first appeared, it's supposed to be this, oh shit, it's Liu Kang kind of moment, and you know, same thing with a ton of the other characters. Like, if you're not familiar with Goro, it's probably not going to mean anything to you when he pops up in the movie. And the movie doesn't really try and make it mean anything to you. It's, you know, you're supposed to look at it and go, oh shit, it's Goro. What makes it even better is that all the characters are really consistent with their video game counterparts. Every single character feels like they were just ripped straight out of the game. And there's a ton of really tiny references that hardcore fans will notice, like Shinnok's amulet and name drops of other MK characters. This is definitely a Mortal Kombat movie made for Mortal Kombat fans, first and foremost, and I really like that. Also, the original shit that they got going on in this movie about how the characters have to gain their powers through their arcana or some shit was actually really cool. It's awesome to see people get their iconic video game moves only once they complete their character arcs. And this stuff wasn't in the games. Like, all these people have their own powers because of like some electronic shit or just because they're magical or something. But in here, it's like something they have to earn. I like that. It makes things a little bit more personal. Now, despite all of those positive things I had to say about the movie, it's not a masterpiece. It's a simple, by-the-books action movie with some cool money shots of, like, fatalities and shit, but mostly just generic movie fight scenes. It's not super ambitious in the choreography. The only fight that really stuck out to me was the last one with Sub-Zero. Every other one has just kind of fizzled out of my mind. I wasn't expecting too much from this movie from a filmmaking standpoint, but it's kind of hard not to be a little bit underwhelmed by the way this movie looks when the video games honestly are directed and scored way better. Mortal Kombat 10 and 11 are just as much cinematic experiences as any movie would be. Playing the story mode to those games is literally like you're watching a fucking movie. And those video game story mode movies are better than this real movie. It's kind of embarrassing. But what bothered me more than any of that film-making stuff was actually my boy Raiden. They did my dude so fucking dirty in this movie. This is personal, because Raiden is my favorite Mortal Kombat character. Hell, he's probably one of my favorite characters in video games, period. In the universe of Mortal Kombat, Raiden is an elder god who exists solely for the purpose of defending Earthrealm. He is an incredibly logical character that tries to act in accordance to whatever is best for Earthrealm. Now, in the movie, he does fit that role. They didn't change like what he does and what his role is in the story, but his personality and character is not in line with how he is in the games at all. In the games, Raiden is kind and caring, but tenacious in his motivation to protect Earthrealm. He won't let his love for his friends get in the way of his ultimate mission. In the movie though, he's a whiny little bitch that's rude and fucking lazy. When Liu Kang brings the normal humans to Raiden, he gets super fucking passive-aggressive and bitchy and like gives him an attitude.
I have gathered the remaining champions of Earth.
This is what I have to work with?
Raiden would never do that in the games. He loves Liu Kang.
I have conquered the darkness within me. You must do the same.
You will have to kill me.
I would rather save you.
He would accept that this is the situation he's in and realize that he needs to work with what he's got, because complaining is not going to save Earthrealm. The writing in the games is super thoughtful and consistent with these traits and motivations. I can't believe they managed to make all the other characters in the movie super consistent to their video game counterparts, except for fucking Raiden. These are quite literally different fucking characters. Regardless of that fact, that they fucked up best boy Raiden, and they did my nigga dirty, he wasn't in the movie enough to piss me off that much. I still liked it a lot for all the reasons that I said before. It's a love letter to the games in many ways, and that's something I really wasn't expecting. This is a pretty bad movie, but it's a pretty decent Mortal Kombat movie. So yeah, if you're a fan of the games, then I'd recommend this. Check it out if you're interested. You'll probably have a really good time. If you're not, then I don't know, put it on in the background while you're washing the dishes, I guess. 7 out of 10. I hope they make the second one. All right, now let's talk about... Ever since the inception of the superhero craze that Marvel started, everyone else has been trying to get a piece of that pie. And in order to do that, they need to find a comic book to adapt into a show. Amazon's got The Boys, HBO's got all the DC shit, CW's got all the bad DC shit, Netflix has got Umbrella Academy and that new one that looks stupid as fuck. And to be honest, out of all these shows, I'm not too fond of any of them. Pretty much every single one of the superhero shows that I've watched have disappointed me one way or another. But Invincible is the shit. This show is fucking good, man. It's really fucking good. And it's not one of those, oh, it's good, but... No. No buts. No asterisks. This show is just good. Period. And remove the... Yeah. Period. Once again, the trailer for the show looked lame and stupid and like something that's not worth your time, so I didn't really intend on watching this. But then someone recommended the show to me, and even then I was like, yo, I'm gonna give the show 2 episodes, and if it sucks, then I'm gonna stop. That's how jaded I was towards this show and how uninterested I was initially. But then I watched episode 1, and I watched the next 5 episodes in one sitting. I was fucking transfixed to the goddamn screen. I was immediately sold. This is such a cool and creative concept that is super fun to watch only because of how well executed the show is. Every single aspect of this show works tenfold. The writing is phenomenal. There are key emotionally charged moments in the show that only work because of the writing leading up to it. If the writing had stumbled its feet for a fraction of a second, these moments would not sell. The ending of episode 1 only works as well as it does because of the writing leading up to it. And even when crazy shit isn't happening, the B-plots are all really good too. Not only are they well written, but they're also creative as hell. Some of the shit that happens in this show reminded me a lot of the wacky creative shit you'd see in like Rick and Morty or Futurama or something. The great writing is also propelled by the stellar voice acting. There are a lot of popular actors in primary roles in this show, but unlike Yasuke, they aren't chosen just because they're popular. They're chosen because they actually fit the roles they're given and can embody their characters effortlessly. I didn't even know J.K. Simmons was Omni-Man until I looked it up. He sounds so good.
You are a worthless, friendless, faggot-lipped little piece of shit.
Now, the one thing that might turn people off about this show is the animation. And I completely get that because it's what turned me off of the show initially too. I'm really not a fan of generic DC schlock animation. It's so cheap and basic and boring. But honestly, it kind of works in favor for this show. All the other superhero shows have to kind of tone things down compared to how they were in the comic because they're limited by live action. They can't do all the batshit insane things that happen in the comic books because it's a TV show on a streaming service. They don't have the money for that. But because Invincible is animated, it can be much more liberal with how it approaches itself. Its fight scenes can be bigger and better. Its directing and shot composition have the freedom to just do whatever it wants. The characters can look however the show desires. It being animated just makes the possibilities endless. Also, this C-tier animation kind of fits the art style of the comic books. One thing I really fucking hate about the DC animated movies is how they just have a complete disregard for the art style of the comic book they're based on. You have all these badass comics with all these super distinct art styles that just ooze personality, and then you get some fucking half-baked adaptation that's not even trying to do anything remotely interesting visually. But for Invincible, it kind of makes sense because the comic book looks pretty basic and simple for a reason. This is a story that's meant to elicit a bit of nostalgia for other superhero stories. And what better way to make the audience get that nostalgic vibe than having the comic look the same way those comics did back in the day? That mentality towards the art design applies to the show as well. When you see the animation in this show, you immediately draw a parallel with those Saturday morning superhero cartoons. You're going to subconsciously just throw the show into the same pool as those shows because it looks just like it. So when things start to get a little bit different, then it's a huge surprise because you thought this was just going to be a normal superhero joint. This isn't done solely for budgetary reasons. It's a conscious decision that makes the show objectively better. The familiar aesthetic of this show is integral to the experience and the reactions it's trying to elicit from the viewer. Once again, if the budget was higher and it had a more distinct art style, it wouldn't work as well as it does. Also, another thing that kind of blew me away in this show is that it isn't even a one-to-one adaptation of the comics. The entirety of Season 1 takes place in just the first 3 volumes of the comic book, but they didn't really change the core story, they just added to it. That means that a lot of the show is original content made for the show. Invincible isn't good because they're just cutting and pasting from the comic into TV form like an anime. They're shifting it ever so slightly to make it work in the best way that it can for the medium that it's in. There are things that they do in the show that they literally can't do in the form of a comic book because it just wouldn't work the same. The comic book is to credit for sure because obviously it builds like the structure of the story and the characters, but the people behind the show are also to credit as well. Their contribution makes this show as good as it is. The only bad thing about it is Angie's arc near the end. That shit is fucking ass. I don't even know if I have to go into it. I feel like everybody knows. That's the only time where they fuck up in the writing. But everything else is really great. So yeah, I think I made my point. Invincible is a very well-crafted show that I would recommend to literally everybody. So leech off your friend's Amazon account or get a 1-month free trial because this show is worth it. And I'm giving Invincible a 9 out of 10.